First of all, how did this all happen?
It's an interesting story. I was working in Russia in the KHL, coaching Magnitogorsk, had some success, and certainly became familiar with a lot of the people that are running the KHL. When China got involved and wanted to be a member of the KHL, they asked the Russians, could you recommend someone to us to help us with our program here in China? And the Russians introduced me to the Chinese folks that were running the program here as the person that they should look to for some guidance, assistance, and some experience. So it's a funny story.
It's hockey, so obviously they will.
That's a great way of putting it. That is hockey.
I need to know, this, in my opinion, could be the most challenging thing you've done, because we're talking about a newer team in a newer league, well, newer compared to the NHL, but the way I understand the KHL works, you have to have a certain number of locals, and China isn't known for a lot of hockey players, so how is that going to work?
Well, it's going to work in a progression. Yes, it's going to be a challenge to make a comment about the opportunity here, but I am familiar with the KHL. I coached there for 3 years, had some success. We won the championship. At the same time, I'm familiar with how to build a program from my experiences in hockey at various levels, including the NHL. And the way it's going to work here is that you have to identify a certain number of people, and the building process is a little bit of a puzzle, because there's got to be a certain number of Russians, a certain number of Chinese, and then you fill in the rest. And as you move forward towards the Olympics, those requirements change.
Let's talk about that, because I know you have some involvement with the Olympic program here, or you are assisting in some way.
Yes, I'm again on an advisory committee advising the government of China of how to create the grassroots, how to grow the game, at the same time how to prepare an Olympic team and how to be prepared and ready for the Olympics here in Beijing. So I've got two hats on from time to time. One with the Olympic program and the national development of hockey in China, and then of course the KHL Red Star team, building a competitive team in the KHL league. So it's all encompassing but interesting and fun.
What do you think so far? I mean, we're 5 years away. Again, because hockey is in its infancy here, how much work needs to be done towards that?
Well, it's going to be an accelerated program. You probably know better than I do. Once they set their minds to the Team China have now decided we don't want to be embarrassed on the world stage at the Olympics in our country. So this program is going to be accelerated in every level. To develop players, we are going to have to find players throughout the world, identify probably 25 guys sooner than later. This is for the men's team, but it's also applicable for the women's team, and have them start preparing a program. This summer, we're going to have our first preview, if you like, of Chinese players around the world come to Toronto. So that's an Olympic preview, the first one. So we're going to have many of them, but this is the first one 5 years hence will be in the Olympic program.
Last question, because I know you're busy. What happens now with Kunlun? Their season is over, so how do you prepare for the upcoming season?
Well, it's fundamentally signing players to contracts just as you would in the NHL, except you have more flexibility here. If you can access players from North America, for example, Russia, anywhere around the world, Finns, Czechs, Slovakians, Swedes, it doesn't matter. You've got a budget to work with and you sign your players.
You said that was the last question. I have another question.
No
so
problem.
Obviously back home in the NHL, it's easier because there's a farm system. You see the kids who are going to be drafted.
Mm-hmm.
How is that different here?
Well, we're building our own program here, and last year they had the KHL team. This year we have the KHL team, the VHL team. For those folks who wouldn't know what that means, that's the American League or the minor league team, and the junior team. So we've got the 3 teams to start the development of all these players throughout the world, bring them in as juniors, bring them in as American League players if you like, and then the VHL moves up to the KHL. So it's a building a system, and you don't have quite the restrictions or parameters that the NHL has. You can't have that system now. They've gone to a draft in the NHL. The Toronto Maple Leafs can't build their entire system anymore. They have to draft players, and that's a little bit different. You build what they call your own hockey school, the school of the Kunlun Red Stars or the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Okay, Coach Mike Keenan, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.